The new Apple M1 Macs have landed, and today I'm going to show you our initial performance tests with heaps of Mac games. For reference, all of these games have been played on the new MacBook Pro 13-inch. Please note all games have been captured using an external capture card, and Boot Camp is not supported on M1 Macs, so I am unable to test any Windows 10 games. Our first game here is Borderlands 3, which supports the Metal API. It is running under Rosetta 2 because it is not a native Apple M1 application. Will that come? I don't know. Anyways, we're running the game at 1080p ultra settings and we're getting around 22.9 FPS on average, which isn't great, but let's consider that this game is almost unplayable on most Intel Macs out there. In order to run this game on Intel, you must have a Mac with an 8GB or better graphics card. So you're getting similar performance to one of those high-end machines that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. I changed the game to a medium quality preset, re-ran the benchmark, and it gets about, on average, 30 FPS, sometimes dipping into 28 FPS, but it is much more stable, and it still looks pretty nice. But I'm still so surprised that Borderlands 3 is this playable. I really was not expecting it to actually run at all, because based on my experience with Intel, I was really nervous, but it works fairly well. But after this benchmark, we're actually going to get into some gameplay, because I want to show you that within gameplay, it can vary based on the medium quality preset. You can play at about 30 FPS on average. However, when you first launch the game, it will have quite a few major lag spikes, and then it comes good, and you're getting about 30 to 35 FPS on average. And I do apologize, I'm not very good at this game, so my gameplay is a little bit cringy, but even at medium quality, this game looks really good, plays really well, and this is you could expect similar performance on all the other M1 Macs, as their hardware is very, very similar. I really do hope that Gearbox update the game to have Apple M1 support. Will they do that though? I don't think so, because the native Intel port was really rushed and very badly optimized, so fingers crossed, but no promises on that end. So here is an example of a 32-bit game. 32-bit games are not supported on Apple M1 or Intel Macs that are running macOS Catalina or Big Sur. And as you'd expect, it doesn't work here. So you can't play 32-bit games on these machines. I just wanted to show you guys that in case you're wondering. Okay, here is World of Warcraft, which is a special game because it has official M1 support. When running under the ultra quality preset at 1080p, we're seeing about 45 FPS. But if we change it back down to a medium quality preset maybe, it gets 60 FPS on average. For some reason it won't go over that, even with VSync turned off. I don't know why, and the FPS cap is at max, but it won't go past 60, but it runs really well here. World of Warcraft was also the first game to support the Metal API all the way back in 2016. So it's an old game, but it is, it's taking leaps that other games are not. Okay, here's Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which is running at 1080p Ultra, and it's getting around 24 FPS, which is okay, considering what it was playable on low-end Intel Macs. This is the same game running at 1080p medium, it's just a little bit better. This game is running with the Metal 2 API and it's running under Rosetta as well. All of the games on this list are, except for World of Warcraft. When in actual gameplay though, the game is getting about 30 to 35 FPS on average based on my experience, but I only played just this level. It could depend on where you are. Okay, so here we have Minecraft, which was heavily requested. I don't really know how to play this game, so I hope the gameplay isn't cringy, but this game is running well over 100 FPS at 1080p and max settings. The only problem I faced was that it took a really long time to download. I don't know if that was because of my internet. I had to quit it and then restart the download and then it worked. But that could just be my internet, but that's just a warning. Sometimes there are, you know, random frame rate drops, like right now. It froze for like a few seconds right there. I only noticed one of those and I played the game for about, I don't know, 20 minutes. So in all, it runs pretty well considering. Okay, here we have Dota 2, which was heavily requested. Dota 2 is cool because it is supported by the Vulkan API. However, I'm noticing some weird issues. Some people have claimed that the game can get well over 120 FPS, but I could not get the game to go above 60 FPS. I don't know what's happening there, but the game is running fine. It just, you need to put it down to probably, you need to lower the settings to get a smooth 60 FPS. What you're looking at here is Bioshock 2, which is a Metal API game that is running under Rosetta 2. This game is really well optimized, even when running through Rosetta 2. We're playing at 1080p, ultra settings, and we are getting 60 FPS on average. It is an old game, but in 2016 it was remastered with ultra graphics, so it is still fairly demanding all these years later. Feral Interactive are very good at optimizing their games for Mac, so I'm really excited to see what they can do with M1. This game runs great if you are interested in picking it up. Alright, so now I want to give an example of how on Apple M1 Macs you can play some iOS games from the App Store. However, right now they're not great. Here is Among Us and F1 Mobile Racing. You need to consider that none of these games are actually optimized for the Mac user interface. So you have to use your mouse to move the characters around or to select buttons on screen. Some games do support controllers like Dead Trigger 2, so they work well. This game right here also works with a keyboard, so some games do have keyboard support. But most games don't. Monument Valley plays great with the mouse. It's a very good example of what you should play right now, is games that are just built around touch. The other thing to consider is that none of these games can be played in full screen right now. They're optimized for iPad or iPhone resolution, which is a little bit annoying. Now here's Stardew Valley running on Steam. I don't understand why the developer can't port this version to the Mac App Store instead of using the iPhone version, but I think maybe over time developers will learn how to do that, because you have to opt in to have your game ported to Mac from iOS. Dirt Rally is weird because it doesn't let you customize the graphics if you have an external monitor connected. So for this instance, I had to play the game at 2560 by 1600. I had all the graphics set to ultra, and the game would see about 30 FPS on average, sometimes dipping to 28 FPS. However, if I lowered the graphics preset to medium, it would hit an average 50 frames. Dirt Rally supports the Metal framework, so it runs pretty good on Apple M1. And it's also quite an old game now. Okay, here we have Borderlands 2, which supports Metal as well. It was recently updated from 32-bit to 64-bit and improved graphics. I'm a little disappointed with the performance here. It's getting around 45 FPS. I'm hoping that Aspyr, who have kind of gone quiet with porting games to Mac, release a native M1 version, and I'm sure the game can do a much better job at achieving 60 FPS at the Ultra preset. Alright, so CSGO. I tried this game, it was heavily requested, it doesn't work. I tried force quitting it, I tried all these different commands, but it won't launch, so Valve are going to have to do a patch, and we'll see if that happens. Here we have Cuphead, and it works fine, 60 FPS Ultra settings. Shadow of the Tomb Raider has mixed performance right now. It's getting about 25 to 30 FPS at the Ultra preset in 1080p. It also gave me a warning that it is not supported on macOS Big Sur, but it's still played. So Feral just need to put out a patch, because I believe this game should be able to get 60 FPS. It just needs to be optimized for Apple M1. This game also supports OpenGL. If it's ported to Metal, it might get better performance. Here we have Dying Light, which is another OpenGL game. This game requires an AMD graphics card, yet it works here. It's getting about 45 FPS. What we're seeing is that you can play at max settings and get around 45 FPS, but even if you lower down the settings to medium, it still gets 45 FPS, so I don't really know what's going on there. It's running really nicely for us, so if you're interested in this game, it's definitely worth it. It's one of my favorite Mac games of all time. Okay, Hades. I tried this game and it won't launch. I don't know what's going on there. You guys requested for me to try it, but it's not working. The Pathless. This game has terrible performance right now when you run it under the Ultra preset. The game is supported for the Metal 2 API, so I don't know why the performance is so bad. I find that a lot of Apple Arcade games, high-end Apple Arcade games, have bad performance on Intel and Apple M1 Macs, which is weird because Apple curate these games. What I found though is that if you lower the settings to around high, then the frame rate can be about 40 to 60 FPS, which is still great. The game looks really good at this preset. I just don't know why it's struggling so much at Ultra, considering this game isn't that high-end. Even though it's on PS5, I wouldn't call it the most graphically advanced game out there. But as you see, when I relaunch the game, it runs significantly more smooth. There's still quite a few frame rate drops, but it works much nicer. Deus Ex: Mankind Divided, one of the most demanding Mac or PC games. I really was excited for this one. I didn't think it would be playable. It supports the Metal API, and on this machine we are seeing about 24 FPS on average at Ultra preset. That is insane because Macs with dedicated graphics see similar performance at this preset. We lowered the quality to medium, the FPS wouldn't increase that much, like maybe 2 frames. If you lower the quality preset to a little bit lower to like low or low medium, it will be much more playable over 30 FPS. It's also pretty underrated on Mac, so definitely give it a go. Okay, here we have a game that was really requested by you guys, Batman Arkham City. This game works perfectly here. It was recently updated for Intel Macs to support 64-bit and the Metal API, so it's running under Rosetta 2, and it's getting 60 FPS on average at the Ultra quality preset. Now what I did find that outside of that benchmark mode, if you actually go into the world, the FPS can drop to the low 50s, but it's still really smooth when in practice. Yeah, I know a lot of you guys requested this game, so there you go. If you want to play it, go right ahead. It works great. The Sims 4. Many of you guys wanted to see this one, so I can't track this game's FPS, but what I'm guessing is that it's getting around 30 FPS at the Ultra preset. There are a few frame rate drops. It's working pretty nicely. This game was also 32-bit, but was updated to 64-bit last year, and it has support for the Metal API, so it works here now, but it's using Rosetta 2, obviously. So, after all of this, what do you think of the gaming performance offered by the new Apple M1 Macs? We are going to have many more videos about Apple M1 over the following days, so please stay tuned. Leave a like to show your support, and subscribe and turn on notifications to stay up to date with everything Apple gaming related. Anyway, my name is Stewie, and thanks for watching.